How's it going, YouTube? Just wanted to do an update video on basically my response to Eroll Spence versus Manny Pacquiao. I've seen a lot of chatter of that online, of being, really big fight, mega fight. And for the most part, I think it's something that boxing needs. I know in the last couple of years, we haven't really got that type of, I would say, that Mayweather presence of being, elite versus elite. I think that essence in boxing has disappeared for a while now. I do think that it kind of returned when we had that Triple G versus Canelo fight. We had a little aura of that. We got a little bit of it when, Fury fought Wilder. We got a little bit of it with the AJ saga versus Ruiz. That one was also, a very interesting, turn of events. So I think overall, I think this one's going to be good. I mean, I definitely think it's going to be something that boxing needs in general. I don't think that, having two people who are basically supposed to be at the top of their level face each other, I don't see a problem with that. I know a lot of people would, just disagree and be like, no, like, we don't want to see that. But realistically, I think it's something that boxing needs. And I mean, if you look at Manny's last 3 fights, if you look at Spence's last 3 fights, it's a very interesting mix-up. I can definitely say I think the most interesting part is, Spence definitely coming off the car accident. That's, an interesting aspect, because coming into the Garcia fight, he kind of looked very sluggish by the 6th round, like basically tanked out, which is understandable. If you had a year layoff to heal after a car accident and then you got right back into the mix. And even in that fight, I was kind of disappointed with Danny Garcia, because I thought, we were most likely going to get like, Rumble in the Jungle. Garcia was going to show, flashes of, his 140 division version, which, since he's been fighting at 147, a lot of fans have been asking for. So, there's that issue. But overall, I think that after Spence, has that fight, which he did, improve in some type of way, because you have to remember he's starting from ground zero. So he definitely improved. And I think that we'll definitely see the best of him fighting against someone like Pacquiao. So do I think that, Pacquiao has like this big advantage versus Spence in the sense of power and speed? I think it's fairly equal. I mean, Pacquiao fights, obviously he's a southpaw, he's famously known for fighting against flat-footed people. So every time he has to go against, higher opposition in the sense of boxers who can move, he's had problems with it. I mean, even if you look at when he was at lightweight and flyweight, like he was knocked out, in the beginning of his career by 2 really good counterpunchers. The name off of my head isn't there, but you had the Mexican Great, and he was a big counterpuncher himself. So, I could definitely say with everything that I've seen in boxing, this fight is definitely going to be interesting, especially with Pacquiao coming off of a win off of Thurman. I think that's the most important part. Pacquiao winning that Thurman fight basically allowed him to elevate himself to, this level where we see him at, where, he's moving quick, he's thinking quick. His reactions and his ability to get in and out the pocket are still very 100% accurate. There's no slowdown in Pacquiao, which is understandable. We're living in this modern time, so science is definitely a big part of it altogether. And the biggest part is that Spence will have, he will have his advantage, being young, being, Olympic boxer in the sense. A lot of people don't understand how much that really carries in boxing, you know, being in the Olympics, and, you know, just how they win in the Olympics. A lot of people don't understand that. That's why, you know, you always hear about, oh, you know, why did a lot of De La Hoya's matches go 12 rounds? Why did Mayweather's fights go 12 rounds? You know, why do Spence rounds, you know, why do Spence certain fights go 12 rounds? And realistically, what you don't understand is that you haven't seen this fighter compete at their highest level. Highest level is Olympic boxing for amateurs, right? They're fighting against people all over the world. When you're fighting a professional, you barely are fighting the same amateur type of competition when you're starting off. Let alone, you know, 15 fights into your career, maybe you fought someone who's a little bit more, you know, vet-like, but even still then, a lot of boxers aren't Olympians. So, you know, when you get a good boxer who has an Olympic background, they get to fight for 10 full rounds, you're going to see the best potential, because that is typically the way they're used to fighting. They're used to getting points. They're used to having long durations of a fight. They're not used to just going in and getting the knockout. Yeah, you had the Roy Jones. Yeah, you had, you know, the rarities of boxing, you know, Evander Holyfield, Mark Breland, Lennox Lewis, if I remember. You know, you have so many different Olympians who basically understood, you know, the art of boxing. And that's why you're going to see Spence go 12 rounds, because, you know, he's not going to just go in there and try to really get in there and knock him out. It's really about, you know, sustainability. And when you're young, you have a long duration period of time. And I think Spence, even with the car accident, could survive 12 rounds of pure boxing. With Pacquiao, it just, you know, honestly to say, every match is different. And with someone his age, the only thing I could really say is that every fight is going to be, you know, how he shows up. At this point in his age, it's no different than Tom Brady, right? Every single game, he has to show up and be 100%. So on that night, do I think Pacquiao is going to show up and be 100%? I don't know. We're going to find out. You know, obviously we're going to get, you know, the lowdown once the fight happens. But realistically speaking, I think it's going to be an interesting fight. I think boxing needs it. You know, we just got the Taylor versus Ramirez fight. I'm going to talk about that in my next video a little bit, you know, because that fight was magnificent in itself. You know, Taylor, you know, Josh Taylor, he performed, you know, the master class in boxing. So I'll do that video in the morning after I do my unboxing video. And for the most part, you know, get down in the comments, you know, subscribe. We'll talk more about boxing. Obviously, one important thing that I love, you know, once again, is boxing itself as the sport. So if we get to talk about good fights, of course, I'm not really here for like the dilemma and of boxing or anything like that. I'm really here just to look at people's resumes, you know, talk about it, you know, have a conversation about who they're fighting next and see where it goes forward. You know, obviously there's a lot of biases in boxing and a lot of crazy things that happen, but overall, I definitely think that, you know, we're going to still get the best fights as fans. So that's the part I want to focus on, because, you know, all the politics of boxing, you know, you can sit there and go through the old days with, you know, Don King and all of that, like, and you could sit there and see, like, for generations this was happening. So do I think this era is going to be any different? No, I don't think so. I don't think this era is going to be any different. Are we going to get those rare, amazing boxing fights? Of course, 100%. And that's why I think this Spence versus Pacquiao fight represents. I mean, even if Crawford wasn't able to get the fight, this is still good for boxing. And even if Crawford never fights Spence, that happens, you know. Look at Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler, and look how long it took them to get into the ring and fight. Look how long it took Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson to get into the ring and fight. You know, look how long it took, you know, the Klitschko's to get into a ring with, you know, Shannon Brigg, you know, even though, you know what happened, but still, like, you have to do consistent things to get someone into the ring. So do I think that, you know, Crawford is going to get that fight too? No, of course not. He's too good in shape. I don't think that anyone wants to really, chase him down, and he don't want to chase no one down either. Obviously, if you're two-time lineal undisputed at 140 champion, then I don't expect you to, there's just certain things, and that's the reality. Thing about Mayweather is that he had the power, he had the money, he had everything behind it. He grew up in an environment that gave him everything before he was even able to walk. So in the sense of boxing, like, he was groomed to be a star, in the sense, like, yeah, he didn't have it easy growing up, but also it was good enough that he had uncles that were boxers, a father that's a boxer, and that's like any career. If your father is a banker, he's gonna have banking connections. If your father is a doctor, he's gonna have doctor connections, and so on and so forth. So Mayweather was pretty much set up. But Crawford, he comes from Omaha, where so we already know that's not really the center of boxing. We know that's not really a place where all the best fights happen. So reality speaking, this Pacquiao and Spence fight makes the most sense, and I can't wait for it. So hopefully we get to talk about the Devin Haney versus Linares fight that's coming up. Beautiful fight, young Devin Haney. And we might get an announcement about Canelo, who he might fight. Plant, he might fight Charlo or Benavidez. That's interesting setup. I would love to see the best come out of Canelo. He was one of my very favorite fighters, young, coming up. Who else? David Benavidez. I definitely would love to see him, or Demetrius Andre get into a fight, with them two. That would be perfect. There's so many, different choices that we have. Then we got, Teofimo at 130 moving up. So it's very interesting to see where everything's moved forward. And definitely with Pacquiao, him might become a president. That's a very interesting aspect in its sense. So if we get to see that, that'd definitely be interesting. But also, on another fact, if we do get to see Pacquiao fight again, that would be amazing. So I definitely think that it's all a very interesting setting. So hit the comments below. Let me know how you feel about Pacquiao versus Spence. One thing I understand is both of them fight very differently. It's going to be a very different type of fight. Definitely not like Thurman. Obviously, we know Thurman was kind of, rusted off, and, he didn't really, he wasn't in the position to really take a Pacquiao fight, and, that was the arrogance of him. But, yeah, like, Spence isn't arrogant, He's proven time and time again that, he could get in the ring and fight with the best of them. So, you can't get mad at that. Is his resume lacking in the sense of, his age? I think so. I think, because of obviously the PBC battle of the streets and, who was at top and who isn't happened. But I think at this point, Spence is going to get all the best fights. He's going to get all the best fights. He is the it. I've been following him since the Olympics, amateur events. So I know for a fact he is the golden boy. I've been, this is the guy I've been rooting for a very long time. And I love him and Crawford equally. I don't come in here, degrade Crawford. People want to do that. He fought amazing talent. If you don't know much anything about boxing, you would know that, fighting Ricky Burns, who was very notable champion at 135, then going on fighting Victor Postal when he was undefeated, who Taylor beat in a convincing and fashionable way. He also had the Julius Ndongo fight, who was, a really good African fighter who a lot of people don't know about. But he was very dominant, very much a big fighting force in the 140 division. And then, he had Felix Diaz. He was the Olympian, and people were saying, oh, you're dodging him, and he fought him directly immediately. And then on top of that, Jose Benavidez Jr., he was, calling out Crawford at 140 and saying that, you're ducking me, and he gave him a chance at 147. And then, fighting Horn on top of that, fighting Brook, fighting Khan. Khan isn't a big name, obviously, anymore, and his skills aren't up there. But he still got in the ring and fought with this man. If it was anybody else, Khan could have probably knocked them around or did something. But The same thing with you know, Brook. Brook was still in good. Brook won his last couple of fights. So what can I say? Like, I'm not really mad at either one of them. Like, I can't really be mad at either fighter. Like, I just can't. So, you know, if we're here to talk about love, peace, and boxing, definitely hit the comment section. You know, I'll definitely update with any new news of what's going on in boxing. I do watch a lot of other boxing videos too, so I'll kind of try to stay off of, you know, those kind of topics that those boxing channels talk about, because I'm not really a boxing channel. I'm just one guy who, you know, loves the sport, and that's what the video is about. It's not really about getting my agenda across. It's just seeing what I see, and then us talking about it. Nothing about how I feel, you know. Once again, definitely, if you see how boxing is, you know, we've had, you know, not that many big fights compared to like the early 2000s, the mid 2000s. Right now, boxing is in, you know, a very big dry spell, and every year we keep on saying it. So, you know, this is where we're at. So yeah, you know, let's get in the comment section. Let's get, you know, conversating about it. I'm mad I said that, but let's get into the conversation. Tomorrow I'll be doing the unboxing. I'll do a video on Manny becoming president, because that's very interesting with the politics over there in the Philippines. And yeah, definitely check me out. I have another video up already. I did a response for Joe Budden. But other than that, subscribe, and I'll definitely see you guys on the flip side.